Welcome back. Deputy President David Mabuza has given the clearest sign yet that he's ready to step down. He made the comments during a funeral in response to widespread speculation, but the presidency hasn't actually commented on this developing story. Well, for more on this, we are joined by political analyst Lukhona Mnguni, of course, as well as the host of On the Spot here on eNCA. A very good morning to Lukhona. So, we've seen this already with the ANC. We've seen David Mabuza, Panyaza de Sufi. We've seen, as well as with Sihlezi Galala in the KZN. We are now seeing Sissin Dombela. Surely, if you're going to not be re-elected as a particular senior member of the ANC, you're not going to see out your term to the next general election. So this was always a writing on the wall for the DP, you know?
Well, Morena, good morning, and good morning to our viewers. Look, I mean, you're just highlighting the premiers. Look under the belly where the premier, returns as chairperson of the province, whether in Limpopo or in the Eastern Cape. There's still a cabinet reshuffle that gets done to accommodate MECs that, would have made it to senior provincial executive committee posts. And I think this is another culture that has now spread throughout the ANC that is at the heart of, dividing the organization and also making the organization weak. Because what it simply means is that political fortunes in the party must translate to appointment in the state. And sometimes that creates disturbances in terms of how government works. And of course, it effectively means, for example, the president said for a cabinet lekgotla is preparing for his State of the Nation address on Thursday, but he's doing all these processes with some ministers that are not going to be there longer than a month if he does his cabinet reshuffle soon after. So now they've expected him to have done that reshuffle by now. But of course, some people have to be sworn in. I believe that in the coming week, some members of parliament, new members of parliament will be sworn in within the ANC list, and that will pave way for some people to be appointed. And yes, Morena, as Deputy President Mabuza said towards the end of that point he was making, he said he can see that even the newly elected Deputy President is making moves, and it seems as if he cannot wait. So there's also a sense of impatience that comes with being elected into high office within the ANC. And of course, I wonder how that will bode well for the broader agenda of renewal. But as usual, again, forums like a funeral can be used to communicate. In actual fact, after that video clip came out, I then reflected. It was actually February in 2017 when David Mabuza was burying yet another of his brothers. And Ace Makashule spoke at that funeral and made the mention that if people of Mpumalanga want David Mabuza to become deputy president, therefore they should make him deputy president. And true to form, he did become deputy president later in that year in December 2017 at Nazareth.
You raise an important point. Governance, the instability of governance, when every time we are seeing different members take to senior positions, very high-profile, influential senior positions. In this case, of course, under the spotlight is DP. We are only just over 18 months or just over a year away from the general elections. Now, you're going to get new people that are going to be governing between now and, we can only but hope, the general elections. And they might not even have an opportunity to come back into those very positions that they only took over now with this impending cabinet reshuffle. I mean, as South Africans sitting back watching all of these things happen, having a party that is having its conference not too far from the general elections and then just disturbing everything with cabinet reshuffles, what are we to say about that? Because we never know, just like, Johannesburg never knowing who's mayor, who their mayor is going to be every week. What are we to say about just the instability in the governance? Because all we want is service delivery, and yet everybody's just thinking about, their political futures.
Well, Morena, I must say that we've reached a place of far better stability than under former President Jacob Zuma, where on average cabinet was reshuffled every 1.5 years. So with President Ramaphosa, he has even opted not to replace certain ministers. I mean, if you think about it, it's almost a year since Minister Ayanda Hlodlo left, and she has not been replaced. There's just been somebody acting in that post. So I think to a degree we have to be fair and say that there has been a bit of stability, but we have to deal with this idea of a conference of the ANC that, is about 2 years or just under 2 years to the general election. But that's for the ANC to solve. They can either decide to align their conference with, the national elections, or they can choose to adopt resolutions that, being elected into the NEC does not immediately mean that you must move into government. Of course, we are in a very different place, though, now, Morena. We are faced with a transition. I mean, if you look at all the polls, and I think the City Press even today has one poster out polling the ANC in the lower 40s. So the transition period is that there is no guarantee that the ANC will be in power as a majority governing party come 2024 elections. All indications are pointing towards a coalition, whether that's an ANC-led coalition and so on. What it means is that the cake will even be smaller for the ANC in terms of sharing. So today, they currently hold all the ministerial positions besides that of public works held by Patricia Telin. But next year, they might even be at 50% of those posts. So some people are in a scramble, what I call, fighting for the last bite, really, because as you would know, if you are deputy president, you've got lifetime benefits, you've got security, you've got salary and all of that. So it's unsurprising that some people really want to get in now so that they can benefit from the tenure of office, even if it will just be a year and above, because there's absolutely no guarantee that they might even come back into ministerial positions, because whatever configuration you look at, 2024 is a very different ballgame for the ANC, and I think it makes them very weak and very hasty in some of the decisions that they have to take, because it's uncharted territory for them, where they have to confront an upcoming election with the possibility of losing the 50% plus one majority.
I like the word you use, hasty. They're making hasty decisions, and sometimes hasty comes out as a result becomes clumsy. So it could be seen that the DP is maybe making a hasty and perhaps potentially clumsy decision. And the president might then, as he did confirm to the DP that he has actually sat down with the head of state to discuss his decision to resign. Could potentially that discussion have involved maybe the president saying, stay put for the purposes of seeing out a smoother transition, so that maybe he's asking him, don't leave now, because as you also alluded to earlier on, there is still the State of the Nation address. There are still certain cabinet reshuffle that needs to happen, certain movement that needs to be made in cabinet. So could he maybe have asked him, stay here with me at least for us to see out this transition before this move is cemented?
Well, Morena, politically for David Mabuza, this is a proactive move. Just like in KZN, Sihle Zikalala didn't wait for him to be recalled, even when he was being given guarantees by the incoming leadership to say, no, we're not going to recall you. He just knew that he would be in a position where he's politically weak. Whereas still for David Mabuza, he can't even attend National Executive Committee meetings. So you literally are now in a position, because he's not in the NEC, so he's literally in a position where he must receive instructions that is not even part of the political deliberations behind those. So I think it's quite a proactive stance on his part. And of course, he loses nothing. He walks away with a lifetime salary, lifetime security, and he's sorted. So why, be caught up in this politics? But what I think undermines the process is how this issue is being communicated. Because the rumor began sometime last week, and it was dismissed by some. And then eventually there was some level of acknowledgement that, yes, the deputy president has offered to resign. But now we're hearing something else. So that you can't have a communication that is so clumsy about matters that affect the highest office in government land. Because, of course, Morena, the next deputy president, if it is to be Paul Mashatile, he first has to be sworn in as a member of parliament. The constitution is very clear. The deputy president is appointed amongst the members of the National Assembly. So he has to be an MP. And of course, we'll have to see at what point David Mabuza also then resigns and submits his resignation as a member of parliament. So I think all that is, is outstanding now to trigger these processes is for Paul Mashatile to be sworn in as the member of parliament, and I think that will pave way for the deputy president to resign. Of course, you've got State of the Nation address now, so I think the breather period between SONA and budget, which will be in 2 weeks' time after SONA, will probably be used to make these reconfigurations to the government.
we can all, as South Africans, only but dream of a stable country, as a country that does not all have this kind of mess and clumsiness, a country that, you don't have deputy presidents making such very important major announcements on such unofficial platforms. But then again, such is the beautiful land that is South Africa, and these are the things that do happen. Lukhona, we'll leave it there with you for this morning. Of course, you can expect Lukhona Mnguni at about 12 o'clock this afternoon on the spot as he continues to unpack the political landscape here in South Africa that has and always will be one that is volatile and to some extent quite interesting.